If you want to talk about success, success is raising, I'm stealing this from a friend, thoughtful, caring children that you want to be friends with when they're adults.
Right. Wow, that's
Right.
powerful.
That, at the end of the day, if that doesn't happen for you, well, you can have all this money, but if your kids are not there and that relationship isn't there, what have you got, right? A lot of money, which is nice, but still, thoughtful, caring children that you want to be friends with when you're adults. So my 15-year-old gets up to study Chinese, and she's darn near fluent, speaks, reads, and writes. But she set her alarm for 4 a.m. Even after I told her you have to sleep till 5, you're not allowed to study at 4 a.m. So I caught her. But that I think that value of studies was something that came from the people around me here in Asia.
So talk about a little bit about like living overseas, because I mean, you've pretty much, have you spent more of your life overseas than you have in the United States, or is it kind of 50-50?
It's getting close, probably another 5 or 10 years to make it 50
Wow.
50. But yeah, listen, it's very interesting. I mean, we're taking the family back to Cleveland, Ohio, next month, and I'll probably do about 6 week stay there. We're a little work from home, but it's just good for my soul to get back to the U.S. So absolutely love that. But when I come back here, and we do this every year, when I come back here, I'm fully energized, and just you're learning every day from different people, different relationships. You're learning different lessons from a different culture, so it constantly opens up your mind. And then this is funny, so I left the house at 4 a.m. this morning. My alarm goes off, which I didn't end up getting any sleep last night. My alarm goes off, and then I hear another alarm going off, and it's my daughter. And so I have two daughters, 15 and 10.
Mm.
And if you want to talk about success, success is raising, I'm stealing this from a friend, thoughtful, caring children that you want to be friends with when they're adults.
Right. Wow, that's
Right.
powerful.
That, at the end of the day, if that doesn't happen for you, well, you can have all this money, but if your kids are not there and that relationship isn't there, what have you got, right? A lot of money, which is nice, but still, thoughtful, caring children that you want to be friends with when you're adults. So my 15-year-old gets up to study Chinese, and she's darn near fluent, speaks, reads, and writes. But she set her alarm for 4 a.m. Even after I told her you have to sleep till 5, you're not allowed to study at 4 a.m. So I caught her. But that I think that value of studies was something that came from the people around me here in Asia. And even Silicon Valley, you have a lot of friends from different geographies, different areas. And so learning how to be a parent and learning how to raise a hopefully successful child, and successful can mean anything, just from being happy to, worldly success. But to me, that's the real goal. And it just put a little smile on my face when I was leaving. I made her a quick breakfast and then got over here.
So, how do you define success for you?
Yeah, listen, I think it's sleeping at night, right? Listen, I look back, I have a lot of wonderful friends back in Ohio, police officers, paramedics, and they've been very successful, right? They're working hard, they're happy, they live within their means, and they have wonderful children, right? To me, that's success. I've been lucky in banking, just because I love what I do, right? What I do in banking isn't, the lending money and everything. That's not what it is. It's again, I steal stuff from the people around me. But one of the mentors I had at Silicon Valley Bank, guy Ken Lovelace, we're chatting one day when I'm just a little pipsqueak banker, and he's like, Terrance, you have to make the door swing in, right? And what he was referring to is like, have the knowledge, have the relationship, that people come into you to build and grow your business. If you're out chasing all the time, well, then that probably means you're not in a position where you're the most knowledgeable, or right. And it was an idea that had to be molded and shaped. But I always remembered that. So the success and the joy is really when someone calls you and says, hey, I have a problem, I need your advice, right? Or someone calls and says, hey, I was talking to so-and-so and they said, you're the guy I need to talk to, right?
Mm.
So that's the success. And I think if you find success in that and you're disciplined, all the other stuff that we want, it comes, right? But I was watching one of your episodes, a young guy from, I think it was Salinas,
Yeah, Brian.
episode 37,
Brian
right?
Avila.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian. And, Brian's talking about, kind of working in the fields and then to the success he had and everything he hoped to do for his mother and his family. And, right. And he just had it so spot on, which was, work hard, be the most knowledgeable you can in your space, a little bit of discipline, and then the success happens. So to answer your question, to me, it's, can you sleep at night? Do the people around you, whatever little sliver of the world you're responsible for, and we all have our little sliver, do they see you as someone that's helpful in that space and valuable?
Oh, that's awesome.
I like
And
that.
so one thing I wanted to comment on, you mentioned that your daughter is picking up the education values, the Asian education values,
Yeah.
which is a big plus, you know what I mean? Because we definitely, we can agree or probably agree that the education mindset from the United States to Asia is probably a whole lot different. That's like the major leagues of education.
Yeah, listen, I think painting with a broad brush, you could definitely say that, right?
Yeah.
And this I just loved this about a year ago. We speak Spanish at home, but we go back and forth, right?
Mhm.
And my daughter went and enrolled herself in a Spanish class, and she will go every Thursday. I don't know if her Spanish is getting much better because she has a full load, but
Yeah.
I just loved it. Right?
That's a lot of languages to have to learn right there.
Oh, and she's doing French at the same time because it's a requirement in the school. So I'm just like, where's this child coming from, right? But the kids that she hangs out with, right? And she has a mix of kind of expat friends and locals. They all value education,
Mhm.
right? And so she values it, and she sees that, listen, I value it in her.
Mhm.
And it was something I didn't pursue until later in life. So that's really the gift of kind of being over here. And, I think when COVID wasn't here, you're in Hong Kong, so you're, 8 hours in any direction is 2/3 of the world's population.
Wow.
You can go to some pretty amazing places. So we've been able to go to Vietnam, Thailand, Australia, Korea, Japan, and it's not, like when I was a kid in the U.S., like, no, you weren't going on an international vacation ever.
Yeah.
Right? You got in a station wagon, you drove down the street. Maybe if mom was tired, you stayed at the Holiday Inn, and then you came home first thing the next morning.
For us, it was camping.
There you go. Yeah.
That was the big international vacation. Yeah. But
Wanted to ask you, where since we're talking about children, how did you get involved with the Children's Medical Foundation?
Yeah, that was actually a fun story, and it's just something I really love. So, most of us bankers went over to meet these guys because one of the chairman was a venture capitalist, and that's kind of the area we operate in. And so the idea was, okay, maybe if we sponsor this, the bank can generate a relationship and some business. We walked away, and everybody was kind of like, yeah, no, there's no business opportunity there. And that kind of bothered me, right? I was like, wait a minute. So Children's Medical Foundation, basically what they do is they provide neonatal care in rural China. So first 30 days of an infant's life, and most of the time it's premature babies, and you're helping them at the very rural levels, right? So it's kind of like, well, listen, there's no business there, but it's something I'd like to do personally and get involved in. And it just has an amazing board. They do amazing work, and really we're out here raising money in Hong Kong to send into China to help, small babies.
that's
And it was probably about, I think it was 5 years ago, we had an event where it was the 20th anniversary, and one of the families came in from China, from a very rural province. And the gentleman had to borrow a suit, and they came with their clothes in a plastic bag. They were very, very humble, and he got up and spoke in front of this room of people dressed in tuxedos, and but the little girl came down as well with the parents. So the parents came down to speak about their experience of this child being saved and what it meant to them. And then the little girl and my daughter were playing and speaking in Chinese.
Wow.
And my daughter was much older at the time, but they were carrying on a conversation in Chinese. And my daughter brought her some old toys, and the toy had a battery in it. And the girl had never seen a plastic toy with a battery that actually made it come alive. And that just hit me. I'm like, we're all over here doing really well for ourselves. You know, and you know, I tell this to my clients all the time. We're making money in China. We're you know, creating value. We're doing good stuff. This is the easiest thing to give to, right? It's the smallest, poorest, weakest child on on earth, right? I mean, I'm sure there's other countries that have the same needs, but that was what drove me to it. And then that's what keeps me doing it, is that thought.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful.
You know, my sister was premature. She was 3 months premature almost. She was 2 pounds, 2 ounces. So I know how important that care is for that little child.
Right.
If that doesn't happen, it's not a good chance that child's going to survive. So, man, that's amazing, Terrance. Like, you, for what I'm hearing from just speaking to you, is that you're a family man. It's about good values, hard work, you know, making the decisions, and you've always had good mentors around you. Mentorship is everything, to be honest. You know what I mean? Mentorship could be the difference between you succeeding and not. You know, it's like they help you not make all those mistakes that you would probably make if the mentor wasn't there, right? That's
Yeah, I mean, and professionally, whether it was at my old shop or my new shop, I would honestly say that any success I've had is because someone was looking out for me when I was about to make a mistake. They taught me something. Even, you know, sometimes we'll get into it. We'll have some heated conversations at work, and you know, different positions and people are taking. It's a little bit of a battle. With the end, you know, you're doing what's best for the client, but you have to do it what's right for the bank. What's best for the client that's a dance, right?
right.
And so people take different views, and you know, sometimes when the dust settles afterwards, there's a phone call, and you're very humbly telling somebody, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
I learned something. I was wrong and you were right, you know. But that's all good stuff. And I think, you know, we're all big boys and girls, and you can have those tough conversations. But again, kind of going back to maybe your audience and the folks that are looking to say, I want to do this, I want to find those individuals, because they will make or break your career.
Right. And
That's a great advice.
yeah. And you know, I think you had something special too, because they see it. You know, they can see qualities, and they always, they don't say they pick out, but they're going to work with someone they feel that they can develop into somebody successful. You know what I mean? So you did your part too, so to say. So what are your views on like the U.S. given like the last 5 years of, you know, all the climate and the political change and all that? This is not a very political podcast, but I'm just curious about your views on all that.
Yeah. So a few things there. So one is, over the last 5 years, you'd wake up in the morning and you'd go to CNN, and then you go to Fox News, right?
Right.
Each one is trying to sell you something completely different.
Right.
And then you got to kind of find the truth, which, you know, if you go back, and I think this happened, I think it was during the Bush's administration, but they basically cut the news out of media, right? It didn't have to be like factual news.
Yeah.
And I think that's really a lot's missing there, right? And then you add this dynamic of social media that, you know, anybody can say anything. So you're giving a megaphone to anybody that wants to say something.
Right.
And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. You know, you could say, hey, that guy over there shouldn't have said this, and this gal shouldn't have said that. But really, you know, we saw that in the last presidency, where here's Twitter, go ahead and say whatever you want, and this giant megaphone. And
yeah.
So we're living in very interesting times. I think technology is changing so exponentially quick. Humans and government systems are moving like this, right? So if you think about that on a graph, governments, humans, our ability to learn, grow, change, and then technology is doing this.
Right.
Of course, we're feeling friction. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, listen, it's a little disheartening, but then I love going back to the U.S. I have a great time every time I go back, and then I kind of look at them like all that nonsense I saw in the news for the last 11 months, and I come back and everything's not so bad.
Yeah.
Right.
It's actually disappeared. It's funny.
What happened? It's gone. It's not there.
Yeah, the megaphone was taken away. That's what happened, right?
Who knew?
Yeah. I mean, it must have been pretty interesting for you though, because obviously, like I said, it doesn't matter who said what or whatever, but that you're in the central hub of where a lot of this hoopla was or false news or misinformation or whatever was targeted. You know what I mean? So I mean, and also being an American in that area, what was that like?
Listen, I can honestly say this. I had this conversation the other day. I haven't been to China in about a year, probably about a year. And I've never one time in China had a negative experience where someone made me feel uncomfortable. And there's always some political tensions from time to time. Something happens down in the South China Sea, or this happens or that happens. Um, but I never felt uncomfortable or unwelcome, unwanted, or nothing but love. And so I'm really interested to see that after a year of a lot of geopolitical tension, um, is that the same way? And I think it will be, right? People are human and wonderful. At the end of the day, people are pretty damn good.
Yeah, and me being here, I understand. Like I'm a little bit more worldly, but I always understand like the political aspect of things, and you know, I just I feel like I know why things were said, and not that it was true or not, but I understand why it was said, and so it doesn't fool me, you know what I mean? But it fools like the majority of people, you know. They're called hot button issues, like it happens every election, you know. It was like, immigrants are taking your jobs was the Bush thing, and then gay marriage, and then now this, and then now that, and then it just goes away as soon as a new president comes in because they don't need it anymore. Now they're in and they do whatever they need to do, and the country forgets, they have amnesia, and then they change whatever. So, anyways, but that,
Yeah, no, and just on that, I mean, hearing and seeing the news where there's like violence against Asians in America,
yeah,
Mm.
it
Yeah.
you just don't, it doesn't even make sense in any rational realm, right?
Mhm.
it's
And I just go back to any country that I've traveled to here in Asia. I've never felt threatened. I've never felt unwanted. So I think there's a lot of learning that needs to go on. But that's you just look at it; it's completely unacceptable in any direction. But this newfound violence is just we don't need any more of it. So
Yeah, there's a lot of learning and a lot of like healing. Like a lot of like we just need to take the time and talk to one another and understand where people's coming from, you know.
yeah, and just I mean, while we're going down this rabbit hole, I would say you get in the Marine Corps, and here I come, white boy deluxe from Parma, Ohio, and you're thrown in with 100 guys, and within 12 hours, you're showering together and sharing a bar of soap,
yeah,
right? And
Mhm.
there's probably, every skin tone from pasty white to very dark
yeah,
along the way. And, it's like, hey, pass me the soap,
yeah,
you know? Um, and so you learn really quick to whatever, issue you have, whatever misconception, you better get over it pretty
right.
damn quick. Yeah.
Yeah, again, it goes
Great.
back to the military. Man, life lessons learned. That's awesome, Terrance. So I know, I mean, it just seems you have like a very busy, very like hectic life. Like, what do you do outside of work kind of to stay grounded? Like, how do you keep yourself sane with all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, so the last few years, the years and the miles start adding up. And about 2 years ago, I went down to New Zealand for this. It's called Chosen Experience, right? Chosen is the Japanese word for a life's challenge, something like that. And so they take a group of about 10 or 12 people, and they go to some exotic location. And um, I did a week of vegan yoga, meditation, and athletic challenges. So sports tied around play, right? So when you were a kid, you went out and played kickball, and you had fun, or you threw a ball back and forth, and you just had fun. So kind of
Mhm.
like play-based neuroscience stuff. And so I got involved with this chosen group, and just keep doing stuff with them. And then they've also opened up my mind. So I'm doing some meditation. I do some yoga. I've changed my exercise routine to where I got a trainer, and I just told her, teach me how to work out. Give me the flexibility. We'll work on the strength. I don't need muscles. You know,
Yeah,
I don't need that anymore. And it all comes around, right? So I think just really looking at general wellness,
Yeah.
and then kind of through this this group, and there's many different groups, and a lot of information out there about wellness, but the neuroscience of what makes the brain work, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what puts you in a bad place, and then just you get smarter, you make smarter choices.
Yeah.
What inspired you to get involved with that?
So I had met the founders probably about 7 years ago, and they hosted a dinner here. This guy John and Robin, and they were investors in the Middle East. They're U.S. couple. They're not a couple, but they're U.S. Born and raised, and they were in the Middle East doing some investing, and they were burnt out, right? And they had some investments go sideways because the entrepreneurs were burnt out, and they were both athletes prior to becoming investors, and they just decided to change their lives because they too were probably burning out. And so everything that they believed in as athletes didn't match the lifestyle they were living, right? And it was just a story that really resonated with me. And John called me one day. I was sitting by the pool at one of the local hotels with a client, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you come on down and bring a friend?" And so I did, and it was a really good time, great group. And then you start networking with professionals that have the same stress and anxiety as you do, the same opportunity to say, "Hey, I want to go out drinking tonight. I want to go out party tonight, or I want to go to the gym." So that kind of drove me in that direction.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like what Tom Brady does. So I don't know if you've heard of the TB12 method. So Brady, obviously the greatest, arguably the greatest football player ever. You can't even argue it anymore. Even if you hate him, you just can't even argue it anymore, right? He's all about pliability, about flexibility, about mind-body connection. He's vegan. Like those are all the things he's doing to have him still compete at such a, he just won the Super Bowl at like 40. He's my age. He's born in 77. You know what I mean? So like he just won the Super Bowl at 42 or 43, which is, and he won his 8th Super Bowl, which is more than any other NFL franchise in the history of the NFL. So I just wanted to say that because you're kind of like on that little TB12 type of method where it's about mind-body connection, flexibility, maintaining energy, being able to keep going. And so that's pretty awesome.
So
And I had a
basically,
lot of years. Go ahead.
you still have to take care of yourself, no matter how much hard work that you do. You have to do self care. That's the main important thing.
Yeah, and there was a few years in there of hard living. So,
Yeah.
it's the detox, and you just realize that you wake up in the morning, you get out of bed, you're not sore, you're not tired, there's no headache, and then you get that workout in. One I was here in Hong Kong. This is probably about 3 years ago, and John was passing through. He's the founder of Chosen, and he's like, "Hey, Terrance, I'm in town. I don't have much time. Let's meet at the beach at 7 a.m." And we just got this amazing workout in probably about 45 minutes. And we're taking a cab back, and we're just talking. And then we have this deep conversation, and he shares a little bit about himself that I didn't know. And it was some pretty deep stuff. And it was just, wow, within an hour and a half, I grew my relationship with this individual. I grew personally, mentally, and it was just nothing but good came from it. So, the more experiences you can have like that, and the more you enjoy that, probably the better.
Yeah. And so do you continue this strategy or like with your everyday life, like kind of the whole process, or is it just the meditation and the working out? Or
Yeah, no. So you do bits and pieces. Sometimes you're stronger, and sometimes you're less disciplined. But what I found is over probably the last 2 or 3 years, it's becoming more mainstream because you just like the way you feel, right? Eating healthier, and look at 40, you look like you're 25.
Vegan diet.
So it just you're talking about hard work. You're talking about achieving some level of success, whatever you want to be successful in, right? That's all good, but then there's this side, the health side. So if you can be successful there, wow.
Yeah, they say health is wealth, right? And you don't want to be the richest person in the hospital. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what's next, Terrance? What are the next steps for you now?
Yeah, so I started on a project working on a book with a fellow here in Hong Kong, and we're looking at the evolution of the venture capital industry, and how that's affected society, right? So if you take the Fortune 500, the NASDAQ, all those top companies have completely turned over. They're all venture-backed companies. They're all exponential growth companies, and they're all basically companies that touch your lives every day. So working on that project and probably finish that up at the end of the year. And I think that's just kind of a good checkpoint. I've had a wonderful time on the project, reconnecting with old friends in the industry, folks that I've known for a while. There was a guy, I've known him for 10 years. We sat down for coffee and had no idea how involved he was in bringing telecom to China.
Wow.
Right. And then how, leapfrogged the US with instant messaging. And so they pretty much skipped the PC era. Right. And so when you see the early adaptation of mobile internet and all things mobile, why is China ahead of the US? This guy gives me that story over a 2-hour cup of tea.
Wow.
And it's like, wow, I've known him for 10 years and I never thought to ask him what he did before I met him.
Yeah.
That part of the process I'm really enjoying. And I think that'll just kind of open my mindset to say, hey, what more can I be doing with the skill set and relationship set I have? You want to tweak your comfort zone a little bit, but how do you do good?
Yeah. I think with all the relationships and the people you've known, I mean, you could have a lot of interesting podcast stories on the horizon right there.
Well, listen, I loved watching you guys. You guys do a wonderful show. And that's actually why I reached out to you. And it had been a while. So, we're like, why is this guy calling me? But, just want to share some love. Loved what you're doing, and it's good stuff.
No,
Thank you for sharing as much as you can right now. You have an amazing story,
Yeah.
and lots of great advice and words of wisdom.
Yeah. I know you're going to continue to help people, but we always finish off the podcast with something called Joe's world famous 6 questions. So she's going to ask you some pretty deep questions right now. And we're going to get you to think, but I mean, I'm really glad you connected with me, man. Everything happens for a reason. The reason I met you 10 years ago through Danny, you know what I mean? To be honest, it's unfortunate, but I don't talk to Danny as much as I should, but I mean, we met 10 years ago for some reason, we connected, and here we are 11 years later, on a podcast, right? So I'm going to hand it over to Joe, and she's going to ask you some pretty deep questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
Awesome.
All right. What are your number one advice for people out there who wants to find mentors?
Ask. People love sharing their story. They love sharing advice. And when somebody mentors you, listen to the advice they give you, and follow up with them in due time, right? You don't have to follow up with them right away, but listen to what they say, execute on it, and they will share more with you.
That's a great answer. And I'll just add a little bit on that, because I had a lot of mentors in my previous company, and they said the same thing. Ask. They said, we're busy. We're not going to go and be like, hey, do you want to be mentored? Right? They're going to like you said, they're successful. They love to share, but they're too busy. They're not going to seek out people and say, hey, do you want to be mentored? Hey, do you want to be mentored? And then the second point that you made was a great point. Please do what they tell you. Because if you come back and you didn't do what they told you before, that's the end of your mentorship with them, right? Great answer, Terrance. Thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing that. If you could talk to your younger self, what would you tell your younger self?
Be more frugal. Be more frugal. It doesn't matter how little money you make. You can always save some percentage of it. And, it just, at the end of the day, you should be working towards passive income that covers your living expenses. And then you can really live life to the fullest and do what you want to do. Getting to the point where you can do whatever you want to do and that passive income is taking care of you, that's gold.
Awesome.
100%. I agree with that.
Okay. I will take that advice. I'll be more frugal, even more frugal.
And just real quick too, like, a lot of people gave me a lot of crap for the company I was in the last 10 years. Like, it's one of those deals. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Well, passive income, you know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be that, but I just want to make a point. It's not about working income. It's about passive income. because eventually you want to stop. You know what I mean? Eventually you want to do, relax, or not relax, because I don't think successful people ever relax, but you want to focus your life on what you want to do every single day. You know what I mean? So passive income, whether it's real estate, investments, a business, whatever it is, it's about passive income.
All right. So, if you were told you had 48 hours left to live, what is the first and the last thing you would do?
We just spent time with my wife and kids, and along the way, I can pretty much say I've done enough.
Mm,
So yeah, it would just be straight to the wife and kids.
nice.
Number one.
Simple enough. Yeah.
It's funny. I had the same conversation with my parents the other, because I'm here in Hawaii and I'm also visiting my parents. That's part of it, because they're retired here. I hadn't seen them in 2 years. And I just told them, I said, I've just been thinking about that a lot lately, because our family's so separated. Like my sister was in London, I'm in the California, my parents in Hawaii, and then now they just moved to New Zealand, which is funny because I've been to New Zealand twice because my brother-in-law is from New Zealand. But I was just thinking, I was like, when you have all this stuff and you're successful, and none of it really matters unless you have your family to share it with, you know what I mean? Unless you have someone to share it with. Like, what is the point if you have all this money if you're by yourself? You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. So I appreciate that.
Okay. When you hear the word purpose, what's the first thing comes to mind?
You got to find it. Yeah, listen, it's fleeting, right? You have your purpose, you achieve some goals, and you're always chasing it, right? It's going to evolve. If you're growing, if you're changing, I think your purpose will evolve too. It may not change 180 degrees, right?
Mm,
Um, but it's something you're always going to be chasing, and enjoy the chase, right? Because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. It's a journey, not the destination.
journey. I like that. Um, how would you like to be remembered,
Nice guy,
Mr. Nice Guy?
right? At the end of the day, even if I look at work, we have our little battles and our fights, and with your spouse, with your friends, but at the end of the day, if you put a smile on someone's face and they think you're a nice guy, I'll take that.
I agree. I like that. Okay,
So
last
we're
question.
not on lockdown, Terrance. Don't worry about that.
What's your number one wish for the world?
Just a return to sanity, right?
Sanity.
Return to sanity, a return to humanity.
Sanity, humanity. I like that. I've asked, I don't know how many people the same question. Everybody has a different answer. This is the first time I heard that. Yeah, I
It's
like
a new
that.
time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Humanity.
awesome. Any last words, Joe, for Terrance?
Just thank you for taking the time. I've learned so much about you. I've never met you, but within like the last hour or so, you're very inspiring, and I have been taking notes. So in a way, it's like you're kind of a mentor in a way. I'm like, oh, he did this and that. So I think every single people that we have, I just learn from them every single time. So, but yeah, thank you
Well,
for
no, and
your time.
thank you guys. I mean, again, Isaac's a friend on Facebook, and so I watched your podcast, and I was like, you know what, I have to give him a call. I have to say hello, and then he so kindly invited me to do this. So it's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank
Gift,
you.
gift.
It was our pleasure, Terrance. And, like I said, ever since I met you, I felt like we connected. I felt like, maybe you're just being a nice guy, who knows, right? But
Guy.
felt like we were cool, and I've also watched the trajectory of your career, and, moving your entire family to Hong Kong was a big step, but it just showed me that you guys are united, your wife has your back, they believe in you, you know what I mean? Like, most wives won't be like, I'm gonna uproot my whole. Well, she came from Venezuela, so I guess you both kind of had like preparation for this, living overseas.
She was pretty comfortable in Northern California.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So kudos to
Didn't say
her
anything about
Yeah.
for believing in you and supporting you, and moving the family to Hong Kong. But
Yeah. Shout out to your family as well for uh, being the family that they are, because you guys are a unit. I don't even know what it's like to move somewhere else with my family, but you guys have done it. So shout out to them as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any last words you want to give to the YouTube world?
The US, not the
Yeah.
world. The world.
Just be nice to one another. Get over your issues and give someone a hug. Let's all be nice.
All right. So virtual hug right here. All right, Terrance, thank you so much. By the way, if you guys like this episode, please subscribe. Make sure you smash the like button, hit that notification bell. And as always,
Follow your bliss.
thank you.
Thank you, Terrance.
Thank you very much.